Steve Bannon has warned that Kemi and Kier and the European Union will bankrupt Britain if they get away with it on a misadventure in Ukraine. Now, before I start, I want to say to you that I was an aid worker in Ukraine at the beginning of the war, so I am pro-Ukrainian. But I have to say, I think he makes some reasonable points, which we'll go through in this video. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do like and subscribe. G Live TV podcast. They've sponsored this show. We're advertising them all week and they launched today. Great little TV channel. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to show you what Steve Bannon said about the financial problems of the United Kingdom. Now, funnily enough, I'm going to get this a little bit back to front, because what he said at the beginning of the interview, I'll show you at the end, and what he said at the end of the interview, I'll show you at the beginning. So, first of all, let's just talk about when he said about committing to 2.5% of GDP for Britain to spend on its military.
We've just committed to stepping up to 2.5% in the UK. So is that not a move in the right direction?
2.5% is nothing. 2.5% is nothing. And look at your combat capabilities. You guys are going, look, you're doing more than anybody else, but you're so far away from doing it. If you actually want to do this, we're at 3.5% of GDP. If you wanted to make up for all the years you didn't invest in what's happened to the Royal Navy and what's happened to your Army, which are the two greatest in the world, you have so much investment you have today, and you can't afford it. You're not going to be able to have your public health system. You're not going to be able to have your retirement plans, your pensions. You understand these are all trade-offs and hard trade-offs. You're in financial distress right now. It's arguable that the IMF could be stepping in to Great Britain in the next couple of years. Your bond market already turfed out Liz Truss. You think you're out of that right now? You haven't looked at what's happening to the British economy. And you have to put that in context of stepping up for a massive defense increase.
Okay. Now, look, the reality is that Steve Bannon's principal concern is that we in the United Kingdom have ended up in a position where we're virtually bankrupt, where our state spending is completely out of control, where Labour and the Conservatives have continually failed to address the problems of debt. As he says, what happened to Liz Truss, the fact the bond markets moved against the United Kingdom. But what worries me is this. I do think that Britain should be spending more money on its military. Do you know what? I have no problem with 3.5% of GDP. And the reason I say that is because I think national defence is the most important thing. Now, partway through the interview, he does explain that he thinks that the reality is Vladimir Putin's army is a complete waste of time. It's never going to make it all the way through Poland. It's not going to take the Baltic states. It failed to take Kharkiv. It failed to take Kiev. But actually, I think his point is much bigger. And it's this, that we have all these grandiose ideas in the United Kingdom, but in a sense, we're living in the past. Now, we have some of the best some of the best soldiers in the world, but they're called the borrowers because when they go on campaigns abroad, they have to borrow this and borrow that. You know, what have we got? I don't know the exact numbers, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but less than 100,000 soldiers. We've got people living round here in the Windsor area who have literally gone off their trolleys as a result of PTSD. Now, look, soldiers fight wars, right? That's their job. But my point is that I think that they're doing so many tours of duty now in a professional soldier's career that it's extremely damaging to their mental health. And I think we need to be incredibly, incredibly worried about that. Similarly, we've got these two new aircraft carriers, and some people say they're a waste of money. Some people say they're not. Personally, I think part of an aircraft carrier is national prestige. And when we didn't have aircraft carriers, I felt embarrassed. Similarly, when we were talking about getting rid of our nuclear deterrent, I felt embarrassed. But, you know, it's all fine. There's an old saying that somebody's a big hat and no knickers, right? And I feel that that's what our military is. We've got certain big ticket items, but we haven't got the basics sorted. And I just worry that what we're doing in Ukraine is going to send us into real difficulty. Let's watch the second bit of this, which was what he said at the beginning. And just to be clear, he makes clear that Britain is, there's valour in Britain.
Call the bluff of the EU, call the bluff of the United Kingdom, call the bluff of Macron. Let you guys step up, which you haven't to date, and actually do your fair share, if you want to, in Ukraine. We've had it. We're done with it. There's too much blood has been spilled, too much destruction. We called this from the very beginning. Exactly what's going to happen. It's time now to cut our losses.
Isn't the perfect outcome peace, though? Doesn't that involve getting all the sides around the table?
Why does Zelensky have a say-so in that? If we cut off arms to him, we cut off. If we cut
Hold on.
off
Do you not
arms,
think Zelensky should have a say?
hang-
Sorry, can I just confirm? Do you not think Zelensky should have a say-so in the future of his own country?
I do not,
not?
believe Zelensky, because first off, he's 16%. He's not even democratically elected. Right now, if EU wants a part of the table, listen. If Zelensky wants a part of the table, have the United Kingdom step up. Have France step up. Van der Leyen is saying you're going to do $800 billion defense raise. Have the people in the United Kingdom should ask, can you send 30,000 troops? This is not about the quality of British troops. Your valor and courage is unquestioned.
Signals that we would put troops on the ground.
Your valor and courage is unquestioned. You're in financial distress right now. You're very close to having a sovereign debt crisis. You don't have the money. You're totally underwater. Your economy's not performing. And you live in this fantasy, both the Tories and the Labour Party, just like Macron, that you have unlimited resources to send to Ukraine. The Russian army in 3 years at 800,000 casualties has not taken Kharkiv, has not even gotten close to Kiev. They can't cross Poland. They can't go into Germany. You're living in a fantasy land. And somebody's got to talk some hard realities to the people of Europe of what you're actually about to take on. Zelensky is untrustworthy. He's a crook and a punk. And he showed what a punk he was in the Oval Office the other day. He should never be allowed back in. I don't think he should ever be allowed back in to the United States.
I think a lot of people would disagree with you on the point that President Zelensky is a crook and a punk. There were democratic elections.
I don't care if people agree with me. I don't care if people agree with me or not. I don't care if people agree.
The point of principle here is that Russia invaded a sovereign country.
We've sent $250 billion to Ukraine. $250 billion. President Trump says $350. $250. He says he can only account for $88 billion. We want a full investigation of where every penny went that the United States sent. And once that's done, you'll see why they're rated the third most corrupt country in the world. Not by war rooms.
Sorry. Are you saying that if Zelensky comes back, Donald Trump shouldn't do a deal with him? If President Zelensky comes back and presents?
No. Irrelevant. He had his shot. He showed what a punk he is. He had his shot. And this is not about saying thank you.
Do you think President Trump agrees with you on that? Do you think he is
I hope President Trump agrees with me on that. It's the right thing to do. Right now, Zelensky, if he crawled on his belly, it doesn't make any difference. He came over the other day when they told him time and time and time again, do not bring up a security guarantee. A security guarantee means a more American support of the military option and American troops, and that will never happen.
Okay, so here's the fundamental point. The United Kingdom, France, the EU all want to commit to standing on the front line against Russia, and they haven't got the resources to do it. The United States of America says we need to stop the whole thing. Now, for me, as far as I'm concerned, and people are going to go crazy about this, but it's not me backing down. The reality is, there's a lot of Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine. Now, I admit, Kiev is one of them, Odessa is another, and so they're not going to be part of the deal. But I think when you're talking about Donetsk and Luhansk, the bits that Vladimir Putin has already invaded, I think legitimately they should have a referendum on whether they become part of Russia. And what you would do is, week number one, you would have a referendum, do you want to remain in Ukraine or not? And then if they say they don't, week number two, do you want to be independent or become part of Russia? We all know that they will vote to be part of the Russian Federation. And I think that self-determination is a legitimate thing. But what it also enables is it enables rump Ukraine, what is left. It's only 80% of its original territory, but it can now go on and be a sensible country. But the reality is, fighting on forever is not a viable option. Similarly, we could always do a deal on Kursk, which is where the Ukrainian forces hold territory that is Ukrainian speaking. But fundamentally, I think the point is this. We've got to be much more realistic about what we can do in Ukraine. And I don't believe in fighting on forever. I definitely believed in fighting at the beginning of the war simply because Vladimir Putin wanted to take Kiev. And he wanted to take Odessa. He wants to cut Ukraine off and put a puppet government that was pro-Moscow. That is now not going to happen. For me, that is a legitimate outcome. But the idea that we are going to be able to send British troops, you know, for every single soldier that you have on the front line of the war, you need 3 soldiers. One is actually on combat duty. One is recovering from combat duty and one is in training about to go on combat duty. If we commit 30,000 soldiers, that's our entire army gone. Now, is there an argument potentially for recruiting a lot more soldiers? Yes. Is there an army for having more ships? Yes. Is there an argument for having more planes? Yes. But that's not where we are now. And we've got to be realistic about where we are now. For 20, 30, 40 years, we've chronically underinvested in our military. And now the solution is to invest in it, not to waste what little resources we've got on a misadventure in Ukraine. That's going to annoy some people, but I think it's fair and balanced. Until next time, goodbye.